Alright, so we are going to go through and I'm going to look at all the different fire monsters starting at 3 stars. And I'm going to kind of go over their strengths and weaknesses briefly, and I'm going to talk about how I would gear them and what possible gearing options are out there. Now keep two things in mind. First, this is my opinion. My opinion is not the end all be all, and I am not a top player. I mean, by all means, I compete. I like to feel like I do, but I'm not, a top 3 player. So take my opinion for what it is. It's an opinion. The second thing to keep in mind is this game is very new. Things are going to be changing. They've already said that they're keeping an eye on equipment sets so that they can tune them as needed in the future. So things may change in the future. So for future reference, this is April 2nd, 2017. A year from now, these equipment sets might be completely different, and the meta is probably going to shift. So we'll see how it goes. 1-star and 2-star monsters, they're all food. If some of you guys have played games like Summoner's Wars, there's some 2-star monsters that are worth keeping. Not an alliance. No. If you get a 1-star, 2-star, just go ahead and feed it off. The only exception would be if you're saving it for the 5-star crafting that they're going to release pretty soon. So let's jump right into it. Let's talk about Cinder first. So Cinder's skills, he has a 30% chance of block break. He has the same purification, scripted purification ability that I think all of these guys have. If we look at all these guys real fast. I know that some of them extend. That's right. So some of them cleanse, some of them extend. But he has the remove debuffs. He has this ability that attacks all enemies and inflicts one of these debuffs at random. And it also has a 60% chance to deal damage over time. So he's definitely a support unit. He's a great candidate for the I already forgot the name of the set, the Witchstone set. That gives your debuffs and buffs a chance to crit. Because he can put aim break, or he can put power break on an enemy and have it be 50% more effective. He can put a dot and have it be 50% more effective. Removing debuffs, well, you remove it. He's a cleanser, so that's he has some useful utility to your team, and he has this block break on skill 1. So he's a decent 3-star utility monster. Next we have Born. Not quite sure how to say that. The Fire Bear. All the bears are pretty underwhelming. They have a taunt, so they have or not a taunt, provoke. And I'll mention the difference between provoke and taunt while we're at it. Provoke is a debuff that goes on the enemy that forces them to attack you with their skill 1. Taunt is a buff that goes on your hero that forces everyone to attack you, but they get to use all their abilities. So provoke is actually better than taunt because it forces them to use their skill 1 and it avoids them using AoEs, but you have to land it on the enemy. And that means it has to go through that block versus aim check. So you have that sort of thing to deal with. But if you do land a provoke, I think it's better than the taunt. But anyways, so yeah, he does a power break, he does a provoke. If he gets hit by a crit, he gains a power. Yeah, if an enemy hits him with a crit, he gets a power buff and a crit buff. And he also gets 2 heals over time. Problem with these bears, one of these scales off of armor. This doesn't really help. Look, he scales off of armor, but he gets a power buff. Why not an armor buff? Like it feels like his kit doesn't really synergize that well. If you did want to use him, because you had no other option for a fire tank, which they give you one for free, so I don't know why you would. If you did want to use him, though, run him a standard armor-based tank, so you could do either counterattack or just HP or armor sets and stack armor and 1 HP on them. Alright, so moving along, we have these elementals. Elementals have really cool kits, but their stats and their modifiers are kind of too low to actually play out well, at least from what I've seen. So their HP style, well, their attack, this is nothing to worry. The type is attack, but a lot of their stuff is based off of HP. So it heals himself for 30% of his HP. He heals himself for 50% of the damage done. So again, this one's HP, this one's damage, and this one sacrificed 15% of his HP, and it does heavy damage over time, and also deals damage based off his max HP. So we have some attacks based off your max HP, some attacks based off of attack, And then we have this nuke at the end that's based off of max HP. So this kit is kind of all over the place. Do you ruin him HP? Do you ruin him attack? And he also does damage over time. So he can do some dots for you. You know, some interesting kits because it gives you some choices of do you want to build him up for sort of his skill 3 or do you want to build him up for his skills 1 and 2? You know, if you're doing skill 1 and 2, then you want to go attack. If you're using his skill 3, you want to go HP. No matter what, you would go crit rate and eventually crit damage on them as well if you wanted to play with them. But their base stats are so low that it doesn't really play out to be a big impactor on the game. Rose is severely outclassed by her sister. She's the Cinderella that didn't make it to the ball. You know, I think she's actually one of the foods for the upcoming recipe for 5 stars, the crafting. So that's generally what you're probably going to use her for. But she has the same skill 1 as all fairies, chance to do heal every time. She has a single target, 20% HP cleanse, and she has this. I mean, it's an interesting thing because Confuse is really good, but it's only a 50% chance. I guess you can scale it up to be a 40% chance, so she would need aim to use it effectively. But it heal blocks and it has a chance to confuse, but it has a 3-turn starting cooldown. You know, it takes a while to get to. That being said, if you needed a heal block, Fireglass boss, for example, and you had no other option, you could throw her in there. I wouldn't spend too much time on her though. She's sort of one of those, you know, tries to do too many things and doesn't do any of them well. Alright, so now we have Fire Petra. His name is Basalt. He is good for food for Petra. He probably has one of the worst kits I've seen out of all the monsters I've looked at. You know, he does damage based off of his max HP, which is good. But all of his stuff does extra effects if his HP is low. So if he's, you know, if you read this one, if he's below 30% HP, it does 50% more damage. This one, it has a 50% chance to crit, 100% chance to crit if you're below 30% chance, or 30% HP. And this one, you take 30% less damage if you're below 30% HP. Here's the problem. With how things are currently, the current state of the game, if you're below 30% HP, you're about to die. Someone's going to snipe you off, or one of your healers is going to heal you up. You're never going to be staying in that sub 30% HP, you know, area for very long. The damage input that you're taking in is way too... Now, the exception to that is if you put armor on him. If you put enough armor on him, you can make that 30% actually last longer, but he does damage based off of HP. All of this stuff is based off of his HP. See, he does damage based off of max HP. So you're kind of not playing into his kit by doing that. So, you know, I mean, in my mind, if you tried to use him, you would find that as soon as he gets useful, he dies. So I wouldn't use him. Feed him into Petra. Skill up your Petra. He's awesome. Alright, so now we got the Fire Dog, Oscar, Fire Rust Hound. So he's... I don't think he's the one that's for the future. He might be. There's a post on Reddit that I think Wonder Toys posted where he talks about he actually graphically lists all the stuff that's going to be used in the fusion. So it's good to store those monsters to the side. But so, yeah, Rust Hound, let's see, he attacks twice, 15% chance to heal himself for 10% of his HP, not bad. He has Guard, so whenever he casts Guard on an ally, whenever that ally would be attacked, it instead attacks the Rust Hound. He attacks an enemy, and if he kills it, he takes another turn, and it scales off of his max HP. And then he has Diffuse, which is whenever he takes an action, he cleanses a bomb off of a random ally. And this Diffuse is the reason why some people recommend using him. And in fact, if you look at the rate, he's actually, you know, some people are saying keep him, some people are saying must have. The reason is because, you know, there are certain bosses you're going to come up against. There's a certain equipment dungeon that focuses around landing bombs. And if you absolutely need a bomb cleanser, put this guy on Swift Steel, so he takes extra turns, and you have a pretty decent cleanser. It's not great because it's only a single target, but hey, it's better than nothing. I would rune him either standard tank runes if you're just going to use him as a fire tank. If you're going to use him as a cleanser, then I would do either counter attack or Swift Steel for extra attacks to get extra cleanses off, since it is a single target cleanse. Alright, so now we got Sir Ronan. He's going to be a Witchstone candidate because all of these guys tend to be Witchstone targets because they have lots of utility in them. They reduce the attack bar on their skill 1. They stun on skill 2. They do some sort of AoE either team effect or AoE enemy effect. This one's an enemy effect. It reduces attack bar. And his passive, whenever anyone drops below 30% HP, it gives them a shield. So he helps keep your guys alive. These are like, this whole class, this whole Minotaur class, are like the definition of a good 3-star support. All of their skills offer some utility. That utility is going to be amplified by Witchstone. So again, I would definitely recommend running him Witchstone. And even though he does damage based off of his armor, you know, I would still do double armor, single HP, similar to how you would rune the paladins, or how you gear the paladins. I think his water brother has a better kit than he does, but he's still decent. Alright, so we have the monks. The monks have pretty interesting kits too, and they can shine off of Witchstone as well. So they have a chance to steal a buff, which at the beginning of the stream when I was fighting in that arena against that super tank, I really wish I could have stole his taunt. That would have been nice. He has an ally, or a heal ally, so it heals everyone, but it's only 15%, not that much. Shift Fate is a really cool skill that a lot of these monks have, where it removes the debuffs from an ally and gives them to an enemy, and then you get another turn after that. This one, he attacks all enemies and get crit buff for 2 turns. Unfortunately, it's only him. I think this would be kind of cooler if it were your entire team, but then maybe they wouldn't want a 3-star to be that buff. I don't know. But so I would rune him Witchstone. This is a good thing, or you can rune him like a general tank. Typically, though, you're only going to use him as a pseudo cleanser, and he's going to get replaced by 4-stars eventually anyway, so I wouldn't focus too much on him. But if you were going to rune him, either run him as a tank or run him with Witchstone, so he has his effects are more efficient, or buffer, and I'd probably run speed on him too to try to make him as fast as possible so that he gets off more of his utility. Alright, so I kind of alluded to this earlier. The Pistolier has a really interesting pass. I'm going to jump straight to her 3rd skill, because I think this is where she shines. It's her ascended version of her skill 3, which is Bulletstorm. And if your speed stat is higher than your target's, automatically crit with Bulletstorm. Bulletstorm says attack an enemy and fire 3 more rounds. They hit random targets after the first round. And then it has a 30% chance to continue attacking. So 30% chance to just like machine gun off and keep going on people. And it's guaranteed crit if her speed is high. What that means is you stack crit percent on her. You give her War Tech, so she has a chance to super crit. And you use this skill 3, and you do as much speed as possible so that she always has higher speed. This skill 3 can hit ridiculously hard, given those circumstances. Because it's a guaranteed crit. You don't have to worry about your crit chance. If you do that though, her first 2 skills they're not gonna crit, so they're not gonna hit quite as well. So it's sort of a one-trick pony, you know. The downside to that is this has a 3-turn cooldown that can be reduced to 2 turns. But again, with the speed that you're gonna have on her to make this guaranteed crit, you should get to there a little bit quicker. So she has the same 1st and 2nd skill that the other ones have, which attack twice, chance to armor break. See, this armor break is kind of persistent throughout the entire game, which is why armor isn't as good of a defensive stat as HP, unless the unit specifically makes use of armor, like, you know, skills that scale off of armor. Alright, so we got Sprocket, the Ringtail. He's got some pretty good AoE attacks on him. So his skill 1 has a 30% chance to hit everyone. His skill 2, it fires 3 rounds that hit random opponents, has a chance to armor break. His skill 3 attacks everyone and a 30% chance, does 30% extra damage if they're armor broken. And his Ascension says each hit with shrapnel does 30% chance to deal damage over time. So he does extra AoE damage and he has a chance to do damage over time. I would say with him, you're going to get your standard attack build, which early game attack is going to be power focused, and then once you shift into the crit, where you have high enough crit, then you can shift to crit percent, and you can shift to War Tech, which is super crits. the reason there is he has a lot of AoE function or utility. So he does a lot of AoE damage and is a really good AoE nuker if you need one. Alright, the last one is, I'm pretty sure it's the last 3-star, is the Fire Ranger. All the Rangers are kind of underwhelming. They're single target damage dealers. Their modifiers aren't that great. But if you wanted to, you could build her like a standard attacker. They have pretty basic kits. They have a mark on skill 2. The skill 1 has a chance to increase the mark duration. Skill 3 hits 4 times. And the Ascension has a chance to slow whenever you use this skill 2. I will say the one place where she does have an advantage is in one of the equipment dungeons, where the enemy has an evasion buff that constantly comes up. Any multi-hit, you need multi-hit damage dealers to do that, and she hits 4 times and does damage over time. So she does have some uses there. I just think there's better choices out there, but she can help you in sort of those niche situations. Oh yeah, we haven't talked about Flamefall yet. So he is probably, well, he's not rated high here, but I think he should be rated more in the must-have category. Honestly, all of the Sabertooths are kind of in this category because they do dots on their skill 1, which is huge. It means that their default attack has a chance to put a dot and a 100% chance if they're stealth. And when you're fighting bosses that have an ungodly amount of life, this is what you want. You want dots, and these guys are just dot machines. He has a stealth, and he has an attack bar reduction, which is why he's slightly better than, like, say, his water counterpart. The attack bar reduction, that's pretty good at keeping the bosses from moving. And then his passive lowers the debuff durations on him whenever he uses stealth, kind of, whatever. But really, it's his first and third that are really what makes him shine. His second and his passive just have to deal with staying alive. So yeah, with him, I would rune him not like a standard attacker. I would rune him either Witchstone and Tanky, because he doesn't do any, the dots do 5% no matter what, unless you have Witchstone. So there's no reason to put power or crit or anything like that on him. I would just rune him as tanky as possible so we don't get killed by AoEs. And he's solely there to put dots on. That being said, a Swift Steal, where he's doing extra turn 1s, is a very good thing, so you can do 2 dots. Or alternatively, you could do Witchstone, which gives you all your dots, if it crits, 7.5% chance. The difference is, Witchstone, you have to have high crit, because you need the debuff to crit. Versus Swift Steal, you don't need that crit in there, so you could just rune them without worrying about crit. So it's kind of personal preference there, but he is there as a dotter. And then we have the Shield Maiden. Fire Shield Maiden is really good, second best to the Chaos Shield Maiden. The reason is her skill 1 has a heal block. So you put she already has counterattack built into her kit. If you look at her taunt, she taunts and counterattacks. That's awesome. You don't need the counterattack set. So I would put just standard tank runes on her, or if you wanted to, you could go Swift Steal. I don't think it's really needed. I think just since she does counterattack and taunt at the same time. So yeah, standard tank runes on her. She also does a heal, which is nice on top of all this, and she gets a shield whenever she taunts. She is your answer to the Fireglass boss. I'm just going to say that. That heal, her skill 1 heal block is really the answer to that. And then we have the Free Blade. Free Blades are the poor man's, what are they called? The blind archer guys. I forget what they're called. Let's see. Find out what they're called real fast. I don't have this one. Oathboats. I remembered it as I clicked. And it's actually the very next person is the Oathboat. So yeah, Free Blade is the poor man's Oathboat. So they are straight up damage dealers. They have really good skills for dealing damage. Their first skill has a chance to fill up their attack bar, making them go more. Their second skill does some sort of buff. This one gives a power buff, and if he kills a target, he gives the buff to the entire team, as well as gets an extra turn. That's what his Ascension does. It gives him an extra turn. And then Sandstorm, he attacks. So all of them have an AoE on their skill 3. So you've seen me use my Chaos one a few times. They're really good damage dealers. Early game, I would focus on putting power on them and everything. As you get closer to late game, You want to switch over to War Tech and have high crit and have high crit damage. That being said, they're really squishy, so you probably want to put some HP on them to help them survive so they don't just get one shot. Let's see. Okay, that is right. They did nerf the Fire Glass boss, but it still is easier with a heal blocker. But you can power through it now, so that's good to know. I had to use a heal blocker whenever I beat it. That being said, Life Silk Dungeon. If you can heal block the main boss on Life Silk, it's easy peasy. You know, that's the Life Silk Dungeon is all about. The boss getting healed, block the heals, and you win. Game over. Alright, so now we can talk about the Oathboat. This guy is awesome. They have ridiculous modifiers. They do ridiculous damage. And his passive makes his ability scale off of speed, meaning that Alpha Strike team, he is made for that. You put speed on him. Let's just go over his skill. So 50% chance to get a crit multiplier buff. Okay. If his speed stat is higher, he gains 50% speed bar, and this hits 3 times. It doesn't give you 150% chance. It's only 50% chance, but it does hit 3 times. And then that starts off with an initial cooldown. It does really good damage, and it armor breaks, and it marks. I would build him War Tech, get his crit rate up, and make him as fast as possible. He scales off of speed, so he's going to do more damage with that speed. He's going to go first. He's going to use his skill 2, which is going to increase his attack bar by 50%. Chances are you're going to be so fast that 50% attack bar increase is going to allow you to go again before they even go. So you're going to be shooting your skill 2 and your skill 3 before the enemy even gets a chance to go. I know this because it's happened to me when I've been fighting these guys in arena. It hurts. I've seen some super crit and one-shot my Petra. My Petra isn't like godly geared, but he's pretty decently geared. And yeah, to see him get hit for like, almost 10,000 worth of damage before he even got to go, yeah, you're like, okay, well, I'm just going to go ahead and exit out. I lost this one. So he's really good, these Oathboats. Next we have Braum. I actually have a Braum. Or before I talk about Braum, let me chat here. Yeah, I agree 100%. They're talking about Anchor. Yeah, you build him with War Tech and with Elder Thorn, if you can get it, which is the 20% 2-piece set. And you stack as much speed on him as possible, and just ridiculous damage. Braum, he actually looks... So I pulled one of these, and I 5-starred him, and I geared him up with some War Tech and stuff, and I had really high hopes for him, because every time someone pulls a Braum in chat, you always hear everyone go, Braum, as if he's some like amazing guy. And he's decent, I won't say that. But I think he's probably one of the most overrated heroes in the game right now. Just because everyone, I think from that stigma of people yelling it out when people pull him, you think he's going to be godly, when he's really kind of... Well, I'll show you why. So first, let's go over his attacks. So he attacks an enemy. If he's berserked, it power breaks. He gives all allies power buff and crit buff. Not bad. And he, goes berserk, which berserk, it increases their power, their crit, and their HP, but you no longer have control over them. So for 2 turns while he's berserked, he attacks just whoever he wants to attack, which he does follow the elemental rules. So he would prefer a nature monster over a water monster, for example, but you don't get to choose what skills you use. He always just uses skill 1. His passive, it's a pretty good passive. Whenever he dies, instead he comes back to life. He gets a death shield, which prevents death. He gets a heal over time, and he goes into berserk again. Now let me show you why I was kind of disappointed in him. If you look at his skill 2, it gives you a power buff and a crit buff, and then his skill 3 goes into berserk and immediately takes a turn. At first glance, you're like, oh, that means I can, buff his attack, buff his crit, and then go berserk and just start taking people out, right? No, not so. Look how many turns this is. 2 turns. There's nothing to increase it, so it's only 2 turns. And then his enrage takes another turn. So he casts this, he has 2 turns of a buff on him, right? We go to this one, and we have 1 turn left. He immediately takes another turn, no more buffs. He can never overlap his battle cry with his rage, with his berserk. To me, I was like, what? Are you serious? So this buff only really applies to if you want to use his skill 1, or if you want to give your allies. Now, if you're using him for a team buffer, so that he buffs your team, I think that's kind of where he would shine more than being a damage dealer. I tried to build him as a nuker, and he just doesn't fit that role as a nuker. You lose control over him whenever he does Berserk. He can never overlap his buffs, so he kind of doesn't really fit that role of a nuker. Yeah, I agree. It is silly. I think what they need to do to fix him is his Invoke Rage needs to increase the duration of buffs on him by 1 turn. That way it doesn't cleanse it. You still have 1 turn of power and crit buff whenever he uses Invoke Rage. After he gets that next turn immediately, he still has that turn with the buff on him. If they extended his buffs by 1 turn, which they do on some other monsters, or other heroes, I think that would fix sort of my quarrel, my problems with Braum here. That being said, he still is pretty decent. He's just nothing compared to this guy, the Order one. We won't talk about him until we review the Order guys in a later stream. Yeah, he's ridiculous. Braum, he's okay. Alright, so now let's talk about the Fire Battle Mage. This guy is really awesome. I'm a big fan of him. I 6-starred him recently. He has a lot of different ways you can build him. First of all, let's go skills. Okay, first skill, chance to mark. Second skill, chance to armor break. And if it crits, it also dots, so dot plus armor break. His third skill does an AoE attack with a chance to blind and a dot. His fourth skill does a really good modifier and has a chance to stun. So he's got 2 AoEs. The last AoE, his Ascension AoE, does ridiculous damage. And he's got some dots in there. He's got some utility where he can blind, he can armor break, he can mark. So there's a lot of different possibilities for him. Right now, I have mine geared more towards damage. I want to eventually put Wartech on him. I kind of want to make him an AoE nuker with some survivability. So I'm going to put crit armor, or crit HP, crit percent, and put him on Wartech. So, all of his damage is sort of revolving around him critting. And he's still tanky from having double HP. That's sort of my ideal runes. Not there yet. Eventually I want to get there. But you could also run this guy with the Witchstone set. Because he has so many debuffs that he puts on the enemy, why not make each of those debuffs 50% buffer? There's sky's the limit with this guy. There's many, and you can rune him tanky and use him for his damage over time. You can rune him as sort of a AoE nuker and, put more power on him. It's really up to you. I would recommend using aim on him though, so that you actually do get to utilize these extra effects that he has. But he's a really good fire AoE damage dealer. Next we have the Beetle. The Beetle Lancer is what they call it, Kimura. These guys are really weird because they're tanks, but they have no taunt. So if you look at all of them, they have no taunt on any of the skills. You're probably familiar from this guy because he is the boss from Fireglass Crater. He recently got nerfed, as they were pointing out on stream chat earlier. So if you have one, he got nerfed as well. Everything about him scales off of armor. Well, no, actually his attacks don't scale off of armor. See? Doesn't scale off of armor, doesn't scale off of armor. Gives all allies armor and buff block, doesn't scale off of armor, but his passive scales off of armor. So you probably want to lean more towards armor with him. These guys are going to do Titan Guard so that they help mitigate some of the damage your teammates are taking. But honestly, they're kind of weak for a 4-star tank. They give buffs, so he armor breaks. He can stun, which is nice. And he gives armor buff and block buff. So you could do Witchstone on him. You can do either Titan Guard or Witchstone. Is what I would do. Standard armor base, defensive tank stats or tank gear. But honestly, for a 4-star tank, I think they're a little underwhelming. Okay, so yeah, right, Chart. I'm still going. So yeah, someone just brought up that the nerf only applies to after 6-star level 60, meaning only in the PvE content where they kind of exponentially increase their stats. beyond what the normal player would have. So the nerf to players might not be that noticeable. It's just a nerf to the PvE content. Either way, if I had one, I'd probably use them because there's a serious lack of good fire tanks. So I'd probably use it, but there's better options out there, I would say. Like this guy. Ike, he's pretty decent. So he's got 70% chance to get a crit buff, scales off of armor. Again, none of this guy's attacks scale off of armor. This guy, right away, skill 1, scales off of armor. This fills allies attack bar at 35%, gives him a power buff. Cool, he helps out the team. He's a team player, alright. He provokes, and it does damage based off his armor. Hey, look at that. 2 skills, damage based off armor. That's what you want to see in a tank. You want to see damage based off of HP, or damage based off of armor, or a kit that synergizes with them being a tank. And that's what Ike provides. He also has, whenever he provokes, he reflects damage, and he gets a heal over time. Hey, look, skills that help, synergize with him being a tank. That's what I just said we're looking for. So he's a pretty good fire tank. I would rune him as an armor-based fire tank. Double armor, single HP, put some crit in there, and give him some block. Alright, so now we got one of the newer heroes, Rosy, the fire mechanic. She is awesome. Why is she awesome? Well, first, her passive. If she's above 50% health, every time she uses a skill, she gives all allies 5% speed bar. So she increases their speed bar by 5%. Speed Ike all day, right, Chart says? Okay, yeah, I can see you putting speed instead of block on him. So you get more of his turns off of him. I don't have one, so it's hard, I'm theorizing off of what I would do. But, I theorized all day of what I would do with my Braum, and then once I built him out, it didn't really work like I thought it would. Okay, Rychar saying he uses Ike for his Alpha Strike team. I can see probably for the speed bar. Oh, because it's all allies. That's why. There you go. So you build a fast Ike, so that Ike goes first. He buffs all the attack bars of all allies, and then they all get to go right after him. That's probably what Rychar is referring to in chat right now. Okay, so moving along back to the fire mechanic, Rosy. So her skill 1, 50% chance to give power buff to an ally. Evasion and crit resist buff. Pretty good, survivability buffs for your allies. Resupply. This is so this and her passive is the reason why so many people love her. She extends the buffs on all teammates, and she reduces their cooldowns by 1 turn. So this can't have its cooldown reduced except for whenever you skill her up. But so every 4 turns, she reduces all cooldowns on all allies by 1. She's buffing their attack bar. She's giving them crit resist buff and evasion buff. Like, she is a very good support. She's like a upgraded version of the cows that we talked about earlier, I would say, as far as an overall support class. Yeah, that's right. Alright, so now let's talk about Roland a little bit. He is the, hey, welcome to the game, 4-star hero. He's a decent fire tank. He has 2 abilities that scale off of his armor. He has a leader skill that whenever he kills someone, he gives all allies haste and power. And he has a taunt on him. The reason people don't like him as much is just because he's overshadowed by his brothers. The water one and the nature one, they have more support-based kits. So they have things that synergize with him being a tank more than Roland does. That being said, there's been some people talking a little bit in our alliance about this, where you build like a Roland with like War Tech on him, because his third actually does pretty decent damage, and he has whenever he gets a kill, he buffs everyone. So if you could stack him with armor, give him some crit damage, and then have like War Tech where he super crits, that could be a pretty legit thing to do. That would take away from his survivability a little bit, but it would definitely catch some people off guard in PvP, I promise you that. And that's, I look over and that's exactly what Rychart's saying. War Tech, Elder Throw, and Roland is pretty fun. His A3 hits pretty hard. Exactly, and that is exactly what we've been kind of spitballing in our alliance chat lately as well. It would be a very interesting way to ruin him. However, you get them when you first start playing. You're not going to have access to gear to do that right away, but there's no reason you should feed away your rolling. I would keep them. At the very least, you need the fire tank in the long run. Alright, so here is the Demonesses. Demonesses have really cool debuff kits. They are like the queens of messing with the enemy team. The main reason I say that is their skill 2. It's an attack that confuses the target, 100% chance, as long as they don't block it, to confuse the target. Confuse is one of the coolest buffs I have seen in one of these games. I've never seen anything like it in the games like this I've played in the past. If an enemy is confused, they are guaranteed to use a skill 1 on one of their own allies, and they don't get to control it. So it's a CC combined with a haha screw you have to attack your friend. It's a really cool mechanic. And I'm pretty sure all of the succubuses have this ability. Her skill 1 does bonus damage for every debuff they have, which synergizes really good for the other skills because they give debuffs. This is an AoE silence. I'm sure some of you guys have fought some stuff where you've been silenced. It means you can only use your skill 1. Very annoying. And here's an attack that lowers the duration of all buffs and increases the duration of all debuffs on the target by 1 turn. So, you know, they kind of play off of dealing damage while also having some control. They have a form of CC, they have a form of removing buffs, they have a form of increasing debuffs, they do extra damage based off of how many debuffs they have, and they have an AoE silence. A great kit. You could rune them Wartech to do extra damage. You could rune them Witchblade to do extra, mess with them so that none of these abilities can be dispelled. That's another thing I forgot to mention earlier when I was talking about Witchstone. If you crit with the Witchstone set equipped and you do a crit debuff, that debuff cannot be cleansed. So it's a pretty key thing. I wish I would have had a heal blocker with Witchstone during the last pony event, because I tried to do heal block and they just cleanse it off immediately. If you have Witchstone, they can't cleanse it off, and it would have made Ponyland so much easier. Unfortunately, it's only a week-long event. I didn't have enough time as a free-to-play player to completely re-gear and level up someone specifically for that. All right, let's move on here. All right, we have the Valkyries. Valkyries are pretty interesting. They're another type of tank that doesn't rely on taunt or provoke. Instead, they rely on guard. Guard, if you guard an ally and that ally gets attacked, you get attacked instead. Honestly, I prefer provoke and taunt over guard, because if you're in PvP and you see one of these guys guard someone, then you just ignore that person. And in fact, you can kind of exploit it. The AI sort of, they tend to guard the ally with the lowest HP. So what I'll do is, say I want to kill Hero 1, I'll start off attacking Hero 2, make one of these guys use their guard on Hero 2, and then after their guard is on cooldown, I go back and I take out Hero 1. And you just ignore the Valkyrie herself. But let's see what her kit has. So she has a chance to get a 30% heal over time on herself. She has the guard and counterattack. And she can heal an ally for 30% of their HP, which is a decent amount for a non-healer. And she gives armor buff. She has a leader skill that whenever an enemy dies, it heals all allies for 30% of her max HP. What that means, you want to stack as much HP as you can on her. Typically, these Valkyries would probably synergize with other tanks. You have a hero that has taunt on it, and then you have the Valkyrie on it as well. That way, if your taunt tank starts to get low on damage, you can throw the guard on the hero with taunt. The taunt guy will take the attack, and then it'll get redirected to the Valkyrie, so it's just kind of sharing the damage around instead of focusing it on one target. But you want to rune them standard HP tank, since their passive does revolve around HP. But yeah, I think they're probably going to end up, I'm betting, adding some extra pizzazz to the Valkyries eventually, because they kind of, I see what they're trying to do with them, but I feel they don't feel as satisfying as some of the other 4-star alternatives out there. Alright, let's talk about Vesta. Vesta is going to be food, I'm pretty sure, for the fusion, or the crafting 5-star coming up. But let's go over what she has. She has 50% chance to blind. She can heal all allies for 10% of their max HP. And transform 2 buffs into heal every time. Purify is the reason the Spellbinders are so useful. They completely remove all debuffs on your team, and they replace them with heals. That is very useful in many areas of the game, especially on equipment dungeons, where the main threat is bombs and stuff like that. If you have enough block on them, then you don't have to worry about stuff like sleeps or stuns being applied to her. Then she can cleanse those off of allies. Purify is a very good skill. They are, so far I've seen, the best cleanser, the best Nat 4 cleanser. There's some Nat 5s that are better. Her third skill gives a res, but it only does 1 HP, and then gives them 3 heal over time effects and a shield worth 50% of her max HP. So you want to rune her, or you want to equip her with as much HP as possible, because you revive an ally, but they have no life, and they have a shield worth 50% of her HP. If her HP is too low, that ally is just going to die again, and this skill is going to be wasted. So you need to have a large amount of HP on her to really make use of this. Time of Need, several of the Spellbinders have this passive for their Ascension, which is every time one of your allies gets a debuff, they get 15% of their attack bar. So if someone throws out like a 3-turn AoE bomb, you're instantly going to get another turn. You're going to use your Purify, turn those bombs into heal every time, and laugh in their face. Okay, so it's a lot of fun to do. I actually got lucky enough to pull the order one of these, and she has the same passive and the same Purify, and it's a lot of fun. So yeah, now we're into the Nat 5 territory, the land of I'll never get those, but we're going to talk about them so that we can all drool and be envious of those who do have them. So the first is the Fafnir, the Fire War Dragon. So their skill 1 is pretty ridiculous. It attacks the target, attacks 2 additional random targets, and has a 50% chance on each one of those attacks to do damage over time. 3 attacks on skill 1. Yeah. It has Swift Steel written all over it. Engulf, you attack the enemy dealing bonus damage equal to 15% of the target's max HP. One of the few max HP based damage skills that I've seen in the game so far, if not the only one. Really good against bosses that have a ridiculous HP pool. 15% of their HP is ridiculous. And what that also means is you don't have to worry about putting attack or putting crit damage on these guys. Riot chart. Let me ask you this while you're here. Does crit and crit damage impact the damage based off of max HP? I'll let you get back to me on that if you heard it. If it does, then having crit and crit damage would be worth it once you get enough HP to make them survivable. If not, so yes, it does. So early game, which if you pulled a Fire Dragon any 5-star early game, got a little salt for you, but that's besides the point. Early game, I would just put HP and maybe some armor on him to make him live. Late game though, you want him to be a little tanky, and you also want him to have crit and crit chance. And as Rytrar mentioned, super crit also applies to the max HP base damage. So that means you could be doing some ridiculous damage with this skill 2 against, say, a level 6 equipment boss. So his third skill attacks all enemies, mark and deal damage over time. And his last skill, each time you use this skill, heal yourself for 15% of your power. Okay, I should have read that first. So he needs some power for his passive to be useful. So I would probably do, early game a mix of power and HP. And then late game, I would kind of just shift away from, honestly, his passive, and I would shift more towards making him tanky and making him crit with super crits. That would be a lot of fun, and he does damage over time. So this guy is made for taking down bosses. That's what this screams out to me. He does damage over time, and he does damage based off of max HP. He's designed for big, tanky people, which is the end bosses. Let's see. Oh wow, that's impressive. So Ryachar is saying he's Bionic in one shot the Iron Claw boss if he has an armor break in his marks, because he's probably on, I'm assuming, Vortec and Elderthorn are probably high enough crit to make use of Vortec. Anyways, alright, so moving on, we have Pyre, who's a Draken Mage. So almost all these Draken Mage have bomb abilities, mana bomb on them. Right now, bombers are kind of scarce. I would imagine they're going to add more like 3-star bombers in. The only 3-star bomber I know about is an Order hero, so it's kind of hard to get bombers. But I can see them adding in more bombers in the future. We just have to wait. It's still early in the game, you know? But so there's skill 1, 100% chance of removing a debuff from an ally. So a single target cleanse on his skill 1. Skill 2 is a heal and gives him an armor buff. Skill 3 is that mana bomb. And it also converts buffs into additional bombs. So that's kind of useful. Oh, hey, Rychar says there's a skill 1 or A1 bomber coming out soon. That's going to be fun. It'll be interesting to see what those are. They're probably going to be Nat 5s, and I'll never see one, but that's okay. This still makes it fun. It'll be interesting. This guy's passive, he reduces the damage that your team takes from fire enemies by 30%. You know, against fire-based content, that's pretty good. You know, there's dungeons out there that are all fire, so his passive is really good, or his leader skill is really good for that. All these guys, though, where they really shine, in my opinion, is their mana bomb ability. Bombs do a lot of damage. These guys put, you know, up to 2 bombs on an enemy because they can remove a buff if they have a buff and they put it on, and it scales off of attack. So with any bomber, you don't need crit. You don't need crit percent or crit damage percent. You just need power. So stack up as much power as possible. Put it on there. As far as what sets you want to use. You can use, you know, the 2 sets to make it more tanky, or ideally you can use the Witchstone so that those bombs can't be dispellable. I was just telling you earlier how I use the Spellbinder to cleanse off bombs whenever I fight guys like this in the arena. If they had Witchstone and they put those bombs off there, I can't cleanse them. So yeah, I'm just screwed. You just gotta sit there and watch the bombs and know that they're gonna blow up and hope they don't do enough damage to kill your guys. So I would recommend, you know, eventually getting Witchstone as the 4th set of choice for any bomber, I would say, because then you can't remove the bomb. All right, moving on. These guys are really cool, the Liches. They have a myriad of cool little abilities. A lot of the 5-stars I've noticed have like fancy abilities that do multiple things that can sort of synergize in different ways. You don't really see that with many of the 3-star and 4-stars. Then the Liches are like the perfect example of that. So let's look at their skills. 50% chance to heal block for 2 turns. 2-turn heal block. Plague. It gives a random debuff on your target and spreads it to all enemies. You stun one guy, and that's all he has on him is a stun. Cast Plague on him, and now the entire enemy team is stunned. Pretty awesome. Punishment. Attacks an enemy. Does 20% bonus damage for each debuff on the entire enemy team. Not just the target, his entire team. If you kill the target, you remove all debuffs from yourself, so you cleanse yourself, get invincibility, meaning you can't take damage, and debuff immunity. You can't get debuffs either. Like, and it does really good damage. I've seen this in practice, and it hits pretty hard. And then Death Rush is the passive they get when they ascended. Whenever an enemy dies, fill your speed bar by 20% and gain a power buff. So these guys are meant to, they're meant to kill things. Like, I would put Vortec on one, get his attack up there, do ridiculous damage, you know, nuke people with this skill 3, and then make yourself so that you can't die. Any nuker that has abilities like this that keep themselves alive are really good because you don't have to focus as much on keeping them alive with HP. You can focus more on putting more attack, putting more crit, and more crit damage on them. So let's see what's Rychar saying. Oh, no, this is innocent. Accident? Oh, I get it now. Accident. Yeah, Silas is a great tool against bombs in arena because he has a team debuff immunity. Yeah, so Silas is the green bard. The green bard has an AoE debuff immunity. So you can use that preemptively against bombers, and it prevents the bombs from being put on. So, yeah, pretty useful. Is it better than using the cleanse that the other that the Spellblades have? The Spellblades, remember, when they cleanse, they convert it to heal over time, too. So, they're both good. You can either prevent it, cleanse it. You still have to deal with it, though. You have to deal with bombs. He brought up a good point, because if they have Witchstone on, it'll block the bomb. So, if you have immunity, it doesn't matter if they have Witchstone, you're going to block the bomb anyways. Versus if they have Witchstone, you can't cleanse the bomb. So there are ups and downs. And remember, you can scout your enemy's equipment in the arena before you fight them. So if you see they have, Witchstone on, bring a immunity guy. If you see they don't, bring a cleanser. Alright. Oh, these guys, War Mechs. At the beginning of the stream, those of you who missed it can go back and watch it. You saw me fight a War Tech for like 10 minutes before I finally got like 5 sacks of Enrage and was able to kill him. These guys are the best tank. I would say this is the best and honestly only real viable fire tank at the moment. Like in game, taking a lot of damage without a ridiculous amount of gear, fire tank. And it's all because of this skill right here. It starts off with only a 2-turn taunt, but it can be increased to a 3-turn taunt, and its cooldown can be reduced to 4. So that means there's only 1 turn downtime that he doesn't have taunt. You're not going to be able to one-shot something, or you might be able to if their other guys are weak enough. Chances are you're not going to be able to one-shot a guy in that 1 turn, so he's always going to have taunt on him. The way you would counter that is by bringing AoE guys, or do like what I did and just survive long enough to wait for the Enrage to build up eventually and take him down. Skill 1 has a chance to stun, and it scales off of armor. Good. Skill 3, it applies Disenchant, which Disenchant makes the target immune to buffs, so it blocks any buffs, and this attack scales off of armor. And his passive makes all allies immune to armor break. That's huge, because I talked earlier in the stream about how armor can be easily countered with armor break. Or, and this says, hey, if he's leader, no matter what, my team can't be armor broken. So screw you and your armor breakers. Pretty good kit, pretty awesome tank, very annoying taunt. And they all have this skill 2 taunt. Very annoying. Alright, so let's talk about the Rift Callers. This is probably the hero I've seen the least of in practice in the game. I don't see him much in arena. You see him occasionally when you're doing the campaign stuff, but to be honest, I've never stopped at one and been like, oh man, she's been the reason I haven't, succeeded at this. So we're gonna go through what she has though. I forgot to say how I would rune. How you would rune him is like any defense-based tank. You double defense, HP on gloves, and as much block as possible to prevent stuns and debuffs. You don't want him to get stunned, or you don't want him to get sleeped, because then if he's stunned or sleeped, then his taunt doesn't matter and they can attack anyone. Alright, so back to the Rift Caller. So attacks an enemy, 50% chance to curse them. Curse blocks buffs. Torment, it does 3 damage over time effects with 2 turn durations. That's, 6 times 5? 30%. This right here, in a 3-turn duration, will do, 30% of their total HP. Because that's 3 dots, 2 turns. Attacks all enemies, deals damage over time, so more damage over time, and extends the duration. So you use Torment, and then you use Fan of Flames, and they just covered in dots. Dots for days. Inferno, your abilities have 20% bonus crit if your targets have damage over time. That means you don't have to get 100% crit with her. You can run her at like 80% crit, put the dots on, and then boom, she's now 100% crit because of her passive. With her, you can run her like a nuker with Wartech, or you can run her as a primarily daughter and use Witchstone so that the dots crit and do extra damage. She doesn't do any dots on her first skill, so extra attacks and stuff like that aren't as useful on her. Let's see what's Rye saying. For all war mechs, I actually think aim on gloves and boots. I'm assuming you meant boots and rings with the aim. So let's go back and see. Right chart recommends using aim. Probably for the increased stun chance and the increased disenchant. So they do offer some utility. So this is going to be, up to your gear and your personal preference, I would say. As you're using it if you're having a problem with him getting stunned and getting debuffs on him, then you know he needs some block. If you're not having an issue with that, then go aim so that you can you know, have a higher chance of landing these debuffs. Because 20% skilled up is 30%, not that high of a chance. You need some aim to actually see some stun happening. So yeah, good. Thanks for bringing that up, Rychar. You know, aim is can be useful, and in general, you know, the way I do it, block is only needed if you're having to deal with debuffs. If you don't have to deal with debuffs, like say you know you can see the future and you know that you're not going to be debuffed, you don't need it at all. That's the only thing block is there for. So that being said, your choices are between aim and speed. And speed, obviously, does your monster need to go first? Does it need to go more often? Aim, does your monster need to land debuffs? That's aim. And in this case, aim definitely over speed. Alright. So we already talked about her. The blade dancers. These guys are ridiculous. They hit you and they hit you again and then they hit you 5 more times, it seems like. they just hit you with a flurry of attacks. I think it's called flurry. Yeah, see? So their skill 1, it does 2 attacks and applies 1 combo point, and it has a chance to reduce the cooldowns of their other skills. Scales off of speed. Skill 2, attacks all enemies, adding combo points. Haste yourself, so you give yourself a speed buff, slow the targets, and deals damage off of speed. Attack twice, their flurry, attack twice and add an additional attack for each combo point, and converts the combo points into dots, and it does damage off of speed. I've been saying that a lot. Whenever you crit, fill your speed bar by 10%. That's her automatic passive effect for whenever she awakens them. So the way you rune these is you want them to do damage. Yeah, you put a War Tech on them, give them high enough crit. They don't need 100% crit. Oh, wait, no, they do. Sorry. You want them to do as close as 100% crit as possible, but they're going to be getting extra turns. You want double speed on their boots and rings because all their abilities deal damage based off of speed, and they have so much speed manipulation, speed buff, get attack bar every time you crit. They just go and they go and they go and they hit a lot of times, and then flurry, whenever it comes in, for every combo point, it does an extra attack and an extra dot. Like, they hit a lot and they hit hard and they hit fast. And that is the name of their game. They're really cool. I really like their kits. They're very well designed Nat 5 damage dealer. Let's see. Yeah, it is. It should be a tough choice. Rychart's talking about the war mechs. You know, should you go block or should you go aim? You know, I think those sort of decisions are important to be tough. There should never be an obvious, this is the way to go for every single hero. For every single architect of hero. You know, all tanks should go like this, all DPS should go like this. The game's going to get stale and boring if you do that, so you don't want that. So I like the way you guys got it set up so far. It's really, really fun and diverse. So we got the unicorns. We recently saw them highlighted in the unicorn event last week. So their first attack has a chance, or not a chance, guaranteed 5% heal on the ally with the lowest HP. Second one, it cleanses, because it transforms all debuffs into heal over time, and it gives them 1 additional heal over time. Third one, it does 25% heal to all allies, and gives them a shield worth 20% of their max HP. Not the ponies, the allies. The passive, every time you heal someone, you give them a power buff. This is an awesome, you know, attack supporter, as well as a healer. So they got heal in every single skill. So, you know, maybe a good candidate for Life Soak or something similar to that. But they also, every time they heal, they also give a power buff. So 2 AoE heals that are also putting out power buffs. You know, power buffs can go a long way to helping your damage output. So they're really good healers, and all of the unicorns are very, very strong healers. The 2 ways that I would have seen and I would recommend gearing them is, again, you can go Life Soak, which is going to do 30% extra healing. The other way, which is kind of interesting, is Swift Steal, so that they use their skill 1 more often, which again does a 5% heal and an attack buff to that. So I've had some Alliance members talk about using her on Swift Steal to increase the amount of healing she puts out from her skill 1, which is an interesting side strategy. So Really, it's going to depend on you and what gear you have and how you want to use her. And here is the fire god himself. And here comes the Warlord event starting tomorrow. Well, tomorrow for me, I guess it's going to be Tuesday, reset for Tuesday, midnight at the UTC. It's actually 8 p.m. for Eastern time. So 8 p.m. for me is whenever this event's going to start to try to get this guy right here. In my opinion, he's the best of the Warlords, and we're going to go into why. So his first skill, attack twice, armor break. Pretty cool. Second skill, a 2-turn power buff, a crit multiplier buff, and a death shield. Remember earlier I was saying any DPS that has something that prevents them from dying or taking damage is just like icing on the cake? Death shield. For 2 turns, he can't die. Guess what? Skill him up, it's now 3 turns. 3 turns that he has power buff, crit multiplier buff, and he can't die. Oh, and if that wasn't enough, he gets 50% speed bar on top of all that. Like, this is Battle Trance. Awesome, awesome buff. But that's not why he's so powerful. Why he's so powerful is his third skill and his passive. So his third skill has a really, really high multiplier. Single target nuke. Does a lot of damage. And if it kills his target, it extends his buffs. So these buffs that he got from his skill 2, they get extended if he kills. It refreshes the cooldown of this, so immediately he can use it again, and he takes another turn. Wait, what? Takes another turn, and its cooldown's reset? That means if you're coming up against targets you can one-shot, you can just continuously use skill 3 over and over until they're all dead, and you win. And that's it. And then, if that wasn't, like, you know, enough, they have the passive that says, that third skill, that nuke, it also ignores 50% of their armor. So you know those armor-based tanks? Yeah, screw them. 50% of their armor just completely negated. So this skill 3 does ridiculous damage, resets its cooldown, continues the buffs, gets to go again, ignores armor. It's going to annihilate your team. You can ask people who have fought in properly runed Ankras in the arena. Once he goes, he just starts killing your guys and kills every single one of them. That's it. Your only solution to counter him, to counter one that's properly runed like that, is to CC him. You know, to try to sleep, stun, disable, do something to him. You know, do the silence thing so he can only use the skill 1. Do something so he can't use the skill 3 or he doesn't get to attack you. That's the best counter for him. He's also right now the best farmer in the game. There is, I forget who it is, I apologize, but there is someone out there who has one of these that's runed up enough that can farm like master difficulty content in something like 15 seconds or something crazy stupid fast like that. So he's just all around a ridiculous, I would say the king of single target DPS right now. It's pretty crazy. But yeah, that is all. And how you would rune him, obviously Wartech and Elderthorn get his crit up, which actually, okay, he has a crit multiplier buff, not a crit rate buff. So you need to get his crit rate up so that he actually crits. Crit multiplier isn't as important because he has a self buff. But yeah, you know, get his crit up there, get some Wartech on him, and just win. And that's it. Alright guys, so that is all the fire Nat 3s, Nat 4s, and Nat 5s. How to gear them, or how I would gear them, and what I feel about them. The next I'm going to do is water. I'm just going to go down the line. I'm not going to do it today. I'm kind of tired of talking about heroes for today. But I'm going to have future series where I go over each one of these, you know, and kind of talk about them a little bit. But that's it. So hopefully you guys enjoyed that.